Listen to the Entrepaidneur Sessions, the ultimate podcast for startup entrepreneurs.
Welcome to the latest episode of Entrepaidneur Sessions. We have an amazing guest that we're excited to have tonight, Barbara, aka Barb, Matias Haynes. She's a transition coach. She's very, very skilled. She guides her clients through some of the biggest challenges in their life. So she's a respected coach. She's helped hundreds of people to move on and transition in their personal and business life. So everybody welcome Barbara, aka Barb.
So Barbara, our theme this month is rebuild, rebrand, and restore. So this month we're focusing on ways to help pivot your business and also kind of redefine your brand, especially in this day and time. And so before we even begin, tell us, how did your journey as an entrepreneur begin?
Gosh, you know what? I hate to say this, but it was sort of accidental. In many ways, it's like that. So to give you a little context, I had like 15 plus years in corporate marketing. Over the years, I worked for MTV Networks, Activision, and computers, and then went over into the financial services industry, worked for Schwab. Anyway, so I worked in corporate marketing for 15 plus years in a bunch of different companies. And so then I had my third child, then I sort of semi-retired into other things. And while I was doing that, I had invested in real estate, and the first home I ever had was a 3-unit Victorian building. And the entrepreneurship kind of started there, and that was 18 years ago prior to my first child. And that first pretty substantial investment, I'm still working full time, didn't have kids yet, had to borrow money from people to buy a 3-unit building in San Francisco, pretty much started my unintentional entrepreneurship. So 18 years later, I've flipped a bunch of homes, invested in multiple properties, have been a property manager, renting out buildings for years, and now have sort of grown my portfolio to a pretty substantial place. And then the other accidental entrepreneur, when I semi-retired working for 15 years in corporate marketing, I opened a small wellness practice, personal training, meditation, yoga, retreats, and sort of been building that more as a passion than anything. And then again, over all those years, coaching the entire time, some in a corporate setting, another in a more personal setting. But again, it's accidental because I think, I was really just following things that I was passionate about, following things that I was good at, and also knew that my corporate life had to change because of needing to have better balance in my life with 3 kids. So that's how I evolved as an entrepreneur.
My next question is, how did you get your start as a transition coach? And can you also tell us what a transition coach does?
Sure. So it's probably been a few years, and it was while I was already coaching. So the reason I say transition coach, because for the last, 10 plus years, I've been helping my clients work through major life transitions. People would come to me with, their concerns about a dying parent, or moving through separation and divorce, or trying to turn their business a certain way. And people just kept coming to me knowing what my background was. So it's really been the 10 years since building out my small wellness practice that, I've seen that I've really helped all these people through transition. And the reason I use transition is because, I hate to say this, but life coach kind of sounds cliche. Like, well, what do you know about life? How can you tell me about my life? It's like, well, no, I can't. However, I can help you through these major life transitions. And why can I? Because honestly, I've been through a lot of them myself. I've been, being married for the first time, having kids for the first time, different undulations in my career. I've witnessed the loss of a parent. I now have an aging parent in her that's 88. So every step of the way, I've just, and because, I have to, maybe I'm like this modern day sage or something, but I'm 50. And so at this age, we've gone through a lot of life experiences, and it's helped me to naturally and authentically help people through their own transitions. And then the business background helps a lot because, I've been in startups, I've been in big companies, I've been in companies in transition as well. And so that background also allows me to help somebody to pivot, especially in times like this, to be able to make themselves, more effective in what they do, or potentially just completely change what they do based on where they're at.
And I want to back up on the part where you have kids and you accidentally got into became an entrepreneur. How did that work? How did you manage your time?
It was a little crazy, actually. And that's kind of, anyone who's an entrepreneur knows that it's a startup world, right? So you might be, one day you might not have any work, but the next week you are working 7 days a week. And add children to that, and you're literally like an octopus, just trying to manage everything that you need to do. So I'll be honest, like I think I had a toddler and got sued by one of my tenants in the middle of trying to raise kids, And so when these things happen, you just kind of, I think resiliency is really huge. Being able to take calculated risks is really huge. And then also making sure that you have a good support system, good attorneys, good accountants, different folks to bounce ideas off of so that you make the best decisions for where you're at. And of course, daycare helps. I would have like some help, like I'd have a nanny come when they were smaller and then I would put them in preschool. But it's so important to me as a mother to make sure that I'm present for them, but then also to continue to push through all of my endeavors as well as obviously make some money.
Because I feel like that discourages a lot of people when they have kids and they're like, well, I need a for sure 8 to 5 thing. So the whole being an entrepreneur just kind of gets pushed by the wayside. But it sounds like you hit on the mark. The resiliency is
yeah.
very.
And a lot of times, it's entrepreneurship can be very lonely, but it doesn't have to be. There are multiple people that you can reach out to help support you on what you're doing, even just to bounce an idea off of to help you feel supported. And some people, like at one point, I have an older son. And so by default, he was able to help me in certain cases where I'm like, okay, can you watch your little sister for 20 minutes while I make this call? And so, you find a way. I mean, my mom had 7 kids. And my dad was the only one who worked. So she found a way, and we're all alive. We're all doing relatively well. I kind of look to my past and how my mom, raised us and, helped us to get to, our own individual goals. And I know that there is a way. I mean, I could certainly live with way less if I had to. And those are sort of the years. I mean, I think I was managing buildings and trying to open up my wellness practice. I think in 2009, when I think it was 2008, 2009, when there was that big market drop, like the market went crazy from 08 to 09. And so, we had to rebuild from there, everything going on, and had to find loans for certain things to cover places where we couldn't meet the gap. But again, found a way. And then just, being resilient and resourceful is really huge in these times.
So this next question that I have is probably nothing new to you because obviously you've learned how to pivot, from 2000, when you started your business through 2009 and so forth. And so it kind of leads to my next question is how have you been able to pivot with the situation that we're in right now?
Well, it's been it's been challenging like it's been for many people. I was seeing a lot of my clients in person. And everyone pretty much retreated. Everyone into their little caves, locked the door, and put their masks on and stopped talking to everybody. Right. But I immediately found ways to find them. I started actually being much more active on social media, Instagram, Facebook, etc. I ended up aligning myself with other folks who were utilizing Zoom in different group settings. I started doing my own little group Zoom features. And by the way, that's a lot for the wellness business. So I teach yoga, I teach meditation. I'm also a personal trainer. So I've found a way to still reach out to my people via social media. And then of course, things like Zoom. And then slowly they're starting to come back. And, in some ways I was also just giving out content for free because I knew that people needed to feel better, and health and wellness, movement, yoga, any type of exercise is something that we all really need right now. We need to keep and maintain those things. So I felt actually it was a perfect opportunity to put myself out there so that people could see that they could still participate in, some type of physical activity, meditate with me, and then know that I'm still there supporting them. And a lot of times when you're in wellness, you do more than just the exercise aspect of it. You're actually there really connecting with people and helping them move through move through whatever challenges, but using movement as a way to release that extra energy and stress they may have.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you talked about how this year has been transitional, and I even think for what you do, this is a pivotal year for everything that you offer, because I love the fact that you have your personal experience and your business experience that you kind of merge to help your clients. And I guess I wanted to ask, what are some tips or best practices that you think people should utilize to adjust and transition during unprecedented times like what we're going through right now?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I just that I've repeatedly said to people is, like, we need to accept the fact that we're going through a grief and loss period of our normal lives. So the life that we knew, it's not coming back anytime soon. And so we do have to grieve the loss of that life. And once we've grieved that loss and accepted that loss, and then we can sort of open our eyes to what other opportunities are for us. And then also just note that it is really tough. I think a lot of people, sometimes when I ask people how they're doing and they're saying, I'm great, part of me wonders if that's true or not. Because I think the answer is probably like, I'm okay. And I think that's a normal, fine answer, because we're living in a really big place of uncertainty on so many levels. So acceptance of this uncertainty is really huge this time. And once you accept that, then we go to the next process of, really the process of grief and loss, which says we find acceptance, we manage through whatever feelings we're feeling. And then at the other side of that, we start to find purpose. So purpose means you're like, okay, I can still do what I'm doing. And actually from home, I can be more efficient. So let me pat myself on the back for that, even though I actually loved going to the office and hanging out with my friends in the office. Or, gosh, I hated my job anyway. What a great opportunity to work on my resume and really pivot and follow my passion and find true purpose in my career. So it doesn't have to be all gloom and doom. It can be some degree of rainbows and sunshine, but again, growth is really uncomfortable. So as we pivot, as we start to shift and move, knowing that, accepting the grief and then moving towards our purpose is going to help us find some traction in whatever the next thing is for us.
I love that. And just as a quick follow-up to that, for those who are feeling isolated right now, because I think for a lot of people as well, it's not just even just the change in the mask, but for some people, they feel isolated because they don't know if they can be around people right now, and then they don't want to be by themselves. So what are some, some remedies for people who are feeling isolation during this time?
So some of those remedies is just pick up the phone and call somebody you haven't spoken to in a long time. You don't have to rely on the internet for it. Set up a frequent Zoom call with old friends. Like I went to UCLA, and so every week, me and three of my really good friends from UCLA, we talk. Sometimes we talk about the pandemic. Other times we talk about all the fun times we had in college. But we created the frequency of it. And prior to this pandemic, we weren't actually talking that frequently. If you really can't find anyone else to be alone, honestly, turn on your favorite music and dance around your house by yourself. I do that a lot. But I miss concerts. If you could turn up the music really loud and just feel the music and the rhythm of something move you, it's a beautiful thing. And then the last thing is go take a walk and start to notice the things around you. We live in a really abundant place. If you really think about it, we have, generally a roof over our heads, water that we can drink out of the faucet, food at the table. And sometimes if you just stop, put your phone away, maybe for 10 minutes, you'll notice a butterfly, a beautiful bird flying across the sky, a hummingbird just passing by. This is a time for us to notice those things and know that we aren't totally alone, because the earth is all around us and supporting us in ways that we don't really recognize when we're staring at our phones and worried about the next thing. So, 5-10 minutes a day of just tuning into nature. And you don't have to live in the woods for that. You can walk out. If you live in a big city, there's still nature, a child that you pass by, a dog that you pass by, a little park with some pigeons. Those are just things that we notice, and we can notice those little bits of abundance around us to sort of get that little refresh of our energy and feeling less like we're alone in this world.
That's amazing. You know, and so kind of on a different note,
Mm-hmm.
you know, this is kind of like a challenge for a lot of companies. You know, it's one of those things where it's kind of like do or die, you know, and this has really changed the structure, the infrastructure of a lot of businesses. And so leading into this other question, what are some challenges outside of the lawsuit that you mentioned earlier when you had an infant? What are some other challenges that you face as an entrepreneur?
Well, money, funding, right? So all of us are in a position where, you know, the normal revenue that we were dependent on is either diminished significantly or maybe non-existent at all. And so the question is, do you have the reserves to be able to support you on that? And if you don't, obviously there's a number of business loans out there that are available to those of us who've applied for them. SBA has one, the PPE had some, and they're still working on other opportunities. If you have a mortgage, you know, holding off as long as you can, but there is this mortgage forbearance program if you need something to help alleviate what you're doing. And the last thing again is support from friends, family, colleagues. Maybe what you're doing, maybe you should go into a partnership instead of going solo just during this period. And just, I know, a tremendous amount of networking because again, we were living in a world and a life that was so different from where we are today, which is roughly 6 months after everyone's sheltering in place. And so that business model that you had before, maybe it always needed this significant shift to be much more productive than it ever was. And I know there's a number of businesses that have really changed in this world. I mean, Zoom is a perfect example. I mean, how many of us were using Zoom before this? Not that many, right?
How many of us wish we bought stock?
I know, right? All of us wish we bought stock. But, you know, they're in competitive to things like WebEx and, you know, I think Google Meetups. And right now, even though the security thing was a little bit of an issue, they figured it out really well. And the last time I used it, I was in a coaching seminar and I used it for 20 weeks and I thought it was fantastic. But, you know, I only used it for that specific event. So can you, especially if you're in a business where, you know, you're working with other people, can you utilize the resources and technology in front of us to really be able to change and understand your market better? Is there a direct translation or not? And if there isn't, then do your homework, research, network out to different people, reach out to old college friends, reach out to old mentors. You know, there's no reason why, and you have so much time to reach out to anyone who has touched your life, especially in a business way, and get advice and learn as much as you can about what you can do to maximize the effectiveness of your business. And if you've done all of those things, then that means maybe you shelve the current idea and then figure out what else you can do. And that would be like, you know, a 180 pivot. Maybe you've been working as an accountant all this time, but you really are into health and fitness and you're interested in nutrition. Well, then go for it. You know, there's tons of nutritionists, you know, seminars. I'm actually I've been through precision nutrition fitness coaching. So I'm certified there. But you could take these businesses and do something with it. And the one thing that is very true, and I have to remind myself this all the time, but people with far less experience than the three of us in our Zoom call have, are making tremendous amounts of money on the internet compared to us. And what do? They just figured it out. They were resourceful. They found an opportunity and they just kept trying. You know, so you have to try something before you tell yourself that it doesn't work. But if you sit and you just kind of contemplate life and only just think about it and never put it out there, then you will never know whether or not something works.
That's good. I was watching a conference about 2 weeks ago, like a virtual conference, and they said, one of the speakers said, you don't realize how many millionaires are going to come out of this pandemic. And we've seen so many things on social media. We've seen people go from 5,000 followers to 1 million followers just from finding their niche and just kind of like moving and transitioning during this time. So
absolutely.
I think that's awesome what you just said. So
yeah. And the thing is, you know, you don't know whether or not something is going to stick or you as a person is going to be somebody that somebody wants something from. But the internet and all this content they throw out is a great place to to show people why you are doing something. And when when people agree with your why of why you're doing something, then they align with you. Then they want to buy things from you. There's a great TEDx by Simon Sinek. If you guys haven't already seen it, it's the What is Your Why? He's a fantastic marketer and an influential speaker. I think he's out of England, but it asks, what is your why? And a lot of the big companies have, the reason that they're successful is because they didn't tell people how they made something or what they made. They showed them why. There was a much deeper, authentic platform from which they were selling their products. And all of us have a why. All of us have a why for why we get up in the morning and do what we do. And the more people know about that, the more people are going to align with you.
And that's so true, because that's kind of why we have our company, Entrepaidneur, because we kind of define the why. So
yeah.
That's so spot on.
Yes.
Yeah. And like Mario was saying, the whole concept of Entrepaidneur is really focused on the solopreneur that came from corporate America and is used to having this big network and might give up because they don't have that network. So yeah, that's the why. So that's a great point, Mario. So what does your average day look like? Can you just walk us through?
Oh God.
Day flow?
So it's a good thing I'm a multitasker, because my day varies like day to day. And like I said, I'm between projects. So I'm actually working on one remodel right now, and working a little bit more on the wellness side of my business. But, the day started off with me sending emails about one of my previous projects that where there's issues with electricity that I have to deal with, because as a builder, I have to warranty the house for a year. So it started with that, sort of troubleshooting for an old project. And then it went to project management of a current project, trying to get my current contractor to finish the project, approving different things that he's done, having him move around some furniture for me. And then it goes to working on trying to manage all of my in-person clients that are seeing and moving them in and out of my schedule. And then taking my kids out of the house for a little bit to make sure that they aren't just staring at their devices the whole time. So, and then my day goes all the way typically late in the day, because I sort of have a break in the middle. A lot of my folks, my in-person clients see me after hours, so I'll see those folks after 5. So that is a typical day. It's kind of all across the board. And then, like I said, I do kind of thrive on this multitasking thing, but it does make me a little nutty sometimes. And so I have to put everything into my iCal, or else I would not know where my head was. And because the tasks are so varied. But I think I've always been that way. I think I've always been a heavy multitasker, having my hand in so many different pots at the same time. And it also starts with exercise in the morning. So in this pandemic, everyone's getting the COVID-15 or the COVID-19.
COVID-20.
The COVID-20. So it's really important, now that we know that we're in it for a while, to get that exercise in, even 20 minutes a day for like 5 or 6 days a week, something, walk, yoga, short run, a little circuit work. Got to get it in, because it's not just good for the body, it's really good for the mind.
Wow, that's amazing. There's so many things. I mean, you got so many businesses too. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot.
and so, you mentioned iCloud, and there might be some tools that you still use now, or some tools that you used to use back in the day. But for a lot of people who are watching this video, they have different kinds of businesses.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that we get is, what tools should they use? And I know it varies depending on the business, on the company, but what are some tools that maybe you use for some of your companies, like promotion and so forth?
I'm kind of a old school marketer. So, we did everything printed, and we did direct mail, and I worked for, a credit card company. So I'm a little old school. Now, I don't do direct mail, obviously, but the tools that I use just for managing myself is really iCal on my phone. So pretty easy. I'm heavy to Zoom these days. There's a lot you can get out of Zoom that you don't really realize. If Zoom ever offers a free seminar, you should take it, because they do breakout rooms, and there's a lot of co-collaborating you can do on a Zoom call. And the other thing I do is because this is mostly where the promotion happens, become really proficient at promoting on Instagram and Facebook. I mean, those, as everybody's there, everybody's watching. and everybody's seeing what you're doing, because you basically have a captive audience right now. And before everyone gets loose again, everybody starts to poo-poo social media. Get in there and influence your audience on whatever it is that you're doing, especially if you're, have something that's content related. And if just on the business side, moving to the business side of it, I'm a big believer of Excel. Excel does everything for me in terms of managing my projects, managing my budget, working through some, a business analysis that I need to do for a given real estate project, working through my tax issues on a going forward basis. So, on the marketing side, it's going to be your social media pieces for me, but on the business side, just be proficient at those basic tools like Excel, so that if you have a business idea that you want to present to somebody, that you can spit out those numbers like nothing and know exactly, if you have an actual product, know what your profit is, know what your revenue is, know what your throughput is on all those different pieces. And you have to sort of be proficient on the finances of your company, or hire somebody, hire somebody to help you understand those numbers, so that when you present, whether it be on Keynote or in PowerPoint, that you are ready and you have something, polished and well thought out, so that people will really listen to your ideas and take you seriously.
Love it. I know Mara's about to ask you another question, but I wanted to find out, you have so many different businesses and different streams of income. How do you, from a project management perspective, how do you prioritize like what you're going to work on first? Like, how you're going from your real estate project to like maybe your health related yoga, and then your transition coaching. Like, what's your process like? So,
again, it's sort of cyclical. So the real estate stuff is cyclical. I'm not pushing out, I'm not flipping 3-4 houses a year. I do it on a cyclical basis. So when I'm in the middle of a real estate project, I have to have that be number one the entire time, because, there's usually a lot of money at stake in those projects. And so I need to move them. The majority of my time is spent on that. So the other side of the business is where the next one is existing clients. So any of my existing clients in a coaching perspective are also either first or second in line if I don't have a big project running. So making sure that each of their experiences with me are quality, and they're not losing quality because of something I may be going through. And then the third is really, I like to call it CEO time. So making sure that I'm carving out time to figure out what's next. What am I doing to network? What am I doing to further my business? What is my 1 week, 6 month, or 1 year goal, and like sort of just refining those and making sure that I'm hitting those targets. Again, it fluctuates based on, where I am with the different cycles of real estate. And then also, to be honest, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you're like, I don't want to do anything. I just want to go on vacation. But I really, really, for the wellness side, it's something that it really drives me. It's something that truly gives me purpose. And, being able to work somebody through a big challenge, and then sort of helping them through that process and then getting to the end goal, I've become personally invested in it. So it might not be the biggest moneymaker at the time, but it's still my personal commitment to make sure that I'm helping somebody through whatever that process they may be going through.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it's impacting a life too. So I totally understand that. So. Yeah.
And, what's interesting about, coaching in general compared to therapy. So therapy, you sort of get somebody, if the middle is normal, therapy gets you from, what was not your norm to your norm. And then coaching gets you from norm to your best self. So I'm not a therapist, so I don't claim to be a therapist, but what I can do is take somebody who's at sort of, a good steady state, and then get them to their best self. And that's, honestly, we should all have life coaches. And I wish we could all have life coaches, because it ends up being that accountability partner that everybody wants to help keep just kind of pushing them a little bit, and then moving them to their goal. Just like if you were in a corporate environment, you'd be accountable to your mentors or your boss or someone to like keep moving your goals forward.
Man, that's amazing. And during the process, we're also, as business owners, we're known as risk takers.
Yes.
So to be in business for yourself, that's a big risk. Versus, maybe working 8 to 5, working 8 to 5 is a big risk too. You just don't know when that day might come that you're not working anymore. But as an entrepreneur, what are some of the risks, maybe one of the biggest risks that you've taken?
I think the biggest risk was buying a 3-unit building, my very first property, when I was, how old was I? I think I was 29 or 30. I wasn't making a lot of money. I had to borrow money. But looking back at 18 years, it was the best decision I ever made. And it was super risky. I think within a month of buying that home, and again, this is 18 years ago, we had a major repair that required $10,000 of money that I didn't have because I was cash poor from buying a house. So it was a very stressful time. I didn't think that I could do it, but once you sort of get into the rhythm of it and you understand the risk that you're taking, all of a sudden, you are a risk taker, but because you go through those experiences of feeling what it feels like to put yourself in that much risk, you normalize. And then you get to the next thing, and then you get to the next property, and now you have 3 properties. Then you get to the next property, and now you have 4 properties. And all of a sudden, you're realizing that risk, yes, it still continues to be a risk, but it's a calculated risk. It's a risk that's a known risk. It's something that you know that you've overcome before. There was a time when I owned a 3-unit building in San Francisco. I couldn't sell it. In 2009, I tried to sell it, could not. No one was buying anything. And it took years to sell that property until the market got better. And so I just had to, bite the bullet on it and sit through some really uncomfortable years where we had extra loans. We had, sort of lived way more simply than we do today. And even today, it's a little ratcheted down because we're in this pandemic. But yeah, it was probably the biggest risk I took that has significantly changed, my thoughts on real estate and real estate investment.
Wow. Well, I know there was also a period where that house was you were getting inquiries like crazy from the market.
It took 3 years. It took 3 years for it to actually sell because it was, we ended up renting it and then got sued again. And it's just, we didn't do anything wrong. It's just that people decided that they felt they were more right than we were. So, but that's what it's like to be a business owner. You're going to, you put yourself at risk just by offering your business, right? And that's why you do things. You have your insurances, you have your liability insurance, you do your homework so that you know that you're covered and you could still operate from a position of an authentic position, knowing that what you are doing, there's nothing, I guess, it wasn't a wrong or right thing. It was really just a matter of opinion. And you just sort of need to think about it as business and try not to take too much of these things personal, because business, unfortunately, isn't always very personal. So you have to just think about it and I guess use your most rational thought to make your best decisions for whatever business investment you're doing.
Exactly.
You kind of answered the question somewhat, because based on what you're saying, is when you're in business, did someone educate you to do an LLC, or was that just kind of like did you do LLC or incorporated?
I kind of educated myself on it. Years ago before the internet, I probably couldn't have, but I did a lot of research. I talked to different people who had established them. And then in order to put it together, I did hire an attorney. But did that attorney do everything the entire time? No, because I'm a do-it-yourselfer. I knew that I could probably do most of the legwork and maybe just have him there as a representative for my filings, and sort of did it that way. In fact, there's something I need to do now. And he's like, oh, would you like me to write that up? I'm like, I think I can do this one. So, again, the internet is this amazing resource and you should utilize it. It's a free resource. You should utilize it to your best interest. But then when you actually do something official, just make sure to check with an attorney and maybe hire that attorney for the amount needed to make sure that you're doing your things. Again, it's a combination of attorney and accountant. So make sure that you have 2 people, 2 of those that you really, really trust, and you'll be able to make a lot of really good decisions then.
Awesome. What advice do you have for aspiring entrepreneurs who just trying to make it, trying to make something happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? Don't give up. Give yourself, again, this 1 week, 6 month, 1 year timelines, and then start tracking to what it is that you're trying to get to. I'm sure you guys have heard of SMART goals, right? So establish SMART goals for what you're doing. So specific, measurable, I think it's achievable, and then I think sorry, I'm blanking on the R.
No, you're good. I know the T is like time specific.
T is
right?
time-based.
Yeah.
Time specific. And then R is, I'll have to get back to you on that one. But
I know.
basically, you look up SMART goals, then it's a really good way to sort of give yourself a structure for establishing goals.
Yeah.
The time goal is really good. And I just think, we used to project these goals to be like, what do you want to do in 5 years? You're like, well, actually 5 years is too long now. It has to be like 2 and 3 year goals because the world is moving so fast. And if you wait that long to really get to, your end goal, that's it's probably not going to be fast enough because people do things really fast these days.
Yeah.
And, sometimes people have a successful business already. So then what is really your end goal? Right? So is your end goal to work less, but make the same amount of money? That's a great goal, right? So it doesn't always have to be, a specific thing related to your business. It could be a personal goal that then you have a business or many business ideas that then feed into what that personal goal is. Like I want to retire and travel for 50% of the time when I'm age 55. I'm just making that up. But we have to set goals for ourselves or we'll just kind of sort of spin around and then wonder what happened. Well, if you didn't measure yourself up to those goals, then that's what happened. You didn't put a structure against yourself. You didn't make yourself accountable. And again, for the most part, entrepreneurs are by themselves. So we need to put that type of organization, at least in our heads, to know that, okay, this week I'm doing this and it's important because of this. And in 6 months, I want to do this and let me see if I get there.
That's good. And the R was relevant. I had to Google it.
Thank you. Like, oh, what's happening?
Google. So what's one of the biggest lessons you've learned, with all the years you've been in business?
Oh, gosh. I think for me, especially as, I'm 50, I have kids and, I don't want to work this crazy for too much longer. And I think the biggest lesson for me is just make sure that you are doing something that you really, really love and that you feel good about. And feeling good about means, could be a couple things. It could be that you work in a nonprofit and you're helping serve people every day, or it could be that what you do feels really good. Maybe you're fantastic at coding, or fantastic at Excel spreadsheets, and you just enjoy the act of creating those things, then awesome, And I knew when I had my first child, while I was working full-time in a corporate job, and when I got back to work, life changed for me completely. Like having a child and then going to a corporate job, I just knew that I had to have much more than that. And so maybe it was having those children that affirmed that it was so important for me to do something that I loved, because it was now beyond me. Like at that point, I wasn't that excited about climbing a corporate ladder. I was more interested in finding out what could I do to make a good amount of money so that I could stay home with my kids. Very, very different goals once you decide to have a family and actually see a baby right in front of you and know that that baby's relying on you 100%. And it's different for everybody. Some people are like, that's cool, I'm gonna do my 9 to 5, check in, check out, and be home with my family. But I always wanted a little bit more than that.
Yeah. Mariah can relate. He has 2 small babies right now. So.
How old are your kids?
2 under the age of 2. One of them 6 months. The other one is 22 months.
Oh my goodness, you are not getting a lot of sleep in that house.
Sleep? I heard that's like a vacation or something.
Yeah, no, you'll have that in another 10 years.
Right? But yeah, I definitely believe that, it's one of those things. And I guess everyone has a reason for why they start the business or why they're in business for themselves, if they're in business for themselves. And I guess one of the things, some people are motivated by money. Some people are motivated by trying to be in control of their time. I think one of my motivations is leaving behind a legacy. Leaving behind something that my kids could say, oh, my family started this program or this, whatever it might be. That's kind of my motivation. And at the same time, we got bills to pay, so we got to make money.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting is you could go and just make money and run away to an office and what have you. But I think what's really great, especially for you with kids, who will grow up seeing their dad probably working from home in this new world, right? Is seeing you as a role model and why you're passionate about a certain thing. And that's, that's what my kids see. My kids see me teaching meditation on Zoom. They see me working with people one-on-one. They see me coaching somebody on business, and then flopping to doing work on a construction project. And they see this, even though they may roll their eyes now, they're going to see work ethic later. And I think that's so important when we are driving forward these businesses as parents, to show, dedication, resilience, work ethic, and then also, that process, if you fail at something, how you get back up on your feet. And showing that to your kids is such a, it's a really important thing to build that legacy, right? To show how you were able to pivot and change when you needed to. It's a very healthy thing for our kids to see.
And that goes back to your why, when you had to find what your why is. That's one of the things I tell people whenever when we do branding or web development, whatever. It's like, okay, you want to define what your business is, but you need to find who you are first, and then you, because you are your business, that'll help define your business. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, people do business with you because of you. And there's so much, a personal relationship that you establish with these people. Even some of my contractors, it's a personal relationship with my contractors, even though, I pay them to do a service for me. The process of negotiating and the process of designing and building all those things, it's so important that the relationship with the people that you work for or who work for you is solid. That's why I don't think I could ever be in true sales. It's really hard for me to be a true salesperson. So I'm really more the marketing, authentic salesperson than anything.
I could never, people used to always try to get me to sign up for network marketing. And I said, no, because I don't like the system that it's based on. I don't want you to buy it because I put pressure on you. I want you to buy it because it resonates with you.
Agreed. Agreed. You and I are very similar in that. And that's why marketing is so great, because you get into the whys of why something might be important to somebody, and authentically influencing them that this is something that's worthwhile. But if it's not, walking away and saying, what, there's another customer out there for me. Whereas pressure sales, I really had a hard time with that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we wrap up, I wanted to ask you, how can our listeners connect with you? What are your social handles?
Got it. So the biggest one that I'm the most active on is really Instagram. And that's where I spend most of my time. I have Facebook as well. It's mostly more of personal family. I separated those two a bit. And I also have a website. My website is really simple. It's barbmatiashaynes.com. It tells a little bit more about, my background and the different things that I do. My biggest goal is to really just get more transition coaching clients at this point. I've got my real estate business going. I've got, a certain amount of wellness clients. I just really feel like this is a really opportune time for people to look at themselves, figure out what their personal brand is, whether it be just to get to a better position in their company or to completely or start their own, or maybe do both. I have a few clients that are doing exactly that. And I just think it's such a great time to invest in, a coach, invest in somebody who can really partner with you to get you to your best self. And we tend to not invest in things in ourselves because we think it's selfish, but it's not. It's so important to, this is like a different part of self-care, right? So we exercise, we do yoga and meditation because that's important for our bodies and our minds, but this is too, being able to invest in yourself by hiring a coach, whether it's me or whoever that's somebody that resonates with you, really, really important to do right now. So if you have the opportunity or even maybe there's a mentor out there, invest in, this reestablishment of branding yourself. So really Instagram and my website are the best ways to find me.
Awesome. Mara, you got any final thoughts before I wrap it up?
Well, this might be a Doug question. I don't know, but we're playing with the two names, mentor and coach. So is there a difference, or is that really one and the same?
A coach I see as somebody that you specifically make an investment in. So that means you're actually going to have a paying relationship with a coach. I actually hired my own coach a couple months ago because I needed somebody to sort of keep me accountable. A mentor is somebody that I see it as a little different. So I have a mentor, somebody I used to work with years ago, that I check in with and say, hey, what do you think of this? And what do you think of that idea? And we check in sort of more on a quarterly basis, but I can't depend on her to help push me through. So I see them as two separate things because, you actually have a paying relationship with one, whereas the other one, it's more of a benevolent relationship.
I love that, because I had no idea there was a difference. So I'm glad I asked that question.
Well, that's my interpretation of it. It could be very different, but, if you're in the coaching industry, you'll notice that, there's either a coaching seminar or a coaching relationship that you have that ends up being kind of a longer term piece. Whereas mentors, and it was interesting, I was listening to a podcast, you don't necessarily choose mentors choose you, right? And that's the best way, because if you go up to somebody, if you go to I don't know, I think the example was, God, why can't I think of her name? Sheryl Sandberg, right? So Sheryl Sandberg in a podcast with Brene Brown says, it's she hates it when somebody says, hey, can you be my mentor? And she didn't like it because she didn't necessarily know that person. And they were just sort of making this big assumption that, hey, you're going to spend time with me because I like you. And that's not, apparently for her, that's not the way mentorships work. Mentorships work meaning you see somebody, you take them under your wing, you're like, hey, you know what? I really like what you're doing. Let's talk more. And so there is a distinction there. And so you can't just go around and say, hey, can you be my mentor? Hey, can you be my mentor? Hey, can you be my mentor? It's really something about, having, authentic connections with people, not in a way where you're just trying to, just check a box. Yeah. So that's why coaching is important, because that coaching will help you find those opportunities in a more natural way. And because I can imagine each of you who has a mentor, it was a natural thing, right?
Right.
Yeah. It was a natural relationship that happened. You could think of whatever mentors those were, and it's because somehow there was an affinity between the two of you, not because you said, hey, I like your work, let's talk.
At least some kind of interaction or some kind of shared history or something to bond you, not just random person, hey.
Yeah.
It doesn't flow.
Yeah. So that's, again, my interpretation of the difference. And, I could be proved wrong. But that's why I think everyone should hire a coach, because, and again, a coach has to be somebody that you resonate with. You can't just have, I take this, and don't get me wrong on any of this, but I coach women very well. And I also have some male clients. But if you ask me to coach some guy who is very conservative and comes from a big fraternity, I probably would not resonate with that person.
Whole different mindset right there.
Yeah, totally different mindset. I'm sure there's a great coach out there for that person, but I'm going to be a certain kind of coach for a certain type of person who resonates with, my lifestyle, my ways of thought, etc.
I love it. All right, guys. Well, you heard it here. If you're looking for a transition coach, which you should be right now, because a lot of us are in transition,
yep.
Please log on to barbmatiashaynes.com, and I'm sure we'll drop it on the final edit.
Yes. So. And it's the same name on Instagram. So at @BarbMatiasHaynes is on Instagram as well. So it makes it easy. So same website and Instagram.
Love it. So thank you, Barb, for joining us tonight.
Good to meet you too.
It's so awesome.
Thank you for your shirt. It looks great.
Yes, your shirt looks amazing. I wanted to tell you that.
And now that you're my mentor, we'll be talking a lot more.
I know, we're going to be talking all the time now, right?
Right.
Quarterly meetings.
I love it. All right. Thank you. Thanks for everybody tuning in. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care. Bye.